think I'm live again. Don't know. YouTube. All right, I think I'm live. Cool. This is buggy. All right, well. I have no idea if this is working. It shouldn't be freezing like this. Okay. Well. So hopefully this one doesn't crash. Okay. There was a way to see the chat in here. All right. Sorry, the stream crapped out. Put a comment. All right. Okay. Cool. Sorry, it looks like we're back. Don't know what happened. Anyway, here is the Vista. Nice and tiny. Oh, I love this so much. Anyway, what I was saying before, I guess I'm gonna delete the other stream, so I'll just kind of start over. Hi, my name is Benjamin. Thanks for tuning into this live stream. I'm a huge Kinefinity fan. And I've really educated myself quite a bit on cameras, and I have a really deep, in-depth knowledge on sensors and whatnot. And I love Kinefinity because they absolutely push the limit on sensors. My favorite camera by far is the Mavo LF Mark II. It's a workhorse. I use it every single day. And it is super awesome. Okay, so talking about the Vista. So I saw the Vista first thing in NEB in April, and I just knew right away looking at the firmware, it was nowhere close to ready. In fact, the firmware was the firmware from the Mavo LF Mark II. They just copy pasted it over. They had the hardware, like the hardware is almost unchanged from NAB. Like, That's weird. The hardware's almost unchanged from NAB. Except for this right here. They added a 3/8 mount here. It used to be a 1/4-20 right here. The doors are a lot better. The doors at NAB were very flimsy and like they weren't like closing correctly all the time. Trying to think of what other changes. There is, some indents right here that hold the battery door closed. Oh, my headphones. I'm hearing my headphones down there. I was like, I'm hearing a voice, and I don't want to hear voices. Let's see if I've got any comments. Doesn't look like I got comments yet. They added some indents. I'm going to go over here. You can see this right here on the battery door. There's some little ball D10s right here that will hold that battery door closed. At NAB, this was just kind of spring-loaded and wasn't kind of latch closed like this. I'm kind of pulling hard on that. You can kind of see. So that wasn't latch closed at NAB. Other changes, I'm trying to think. Nope, nothing that I can tell here. Oh, this little tab here has changed. This for the E-mount, it's slightly refined. On the older ones, it had kind of like a steeper angle that would probably interfere with a lot more things. They probably did that to help interface with the Poco MoPhage adapter. Anyway, yeah, so this is pretty similar. The firmware is what is different. And as everybody's seen on the Facebook group and whatnot, everybody's firmware was really buggy. Nobody was able to record in ProRes. There was no audio recording. As of launch today in August, end of August, there is a significant improvement on the firmware updates here. And as far as what comes in the box, you've got the camera here with your selected mount. And then in your little accessory box, you've got a USB-A to C adapter that's labeled Kinefinity. It's really kind of cute. I got one with the Mavo, and it's my favorite, and I love it. Let me come over here. Kind of see it just says Kinefinity. So this is really cute. Keep this. This is really special. And then you get 2 cables here. You get a 2-pin to USB-C power cable, as well as a 10 gigabit USB-C cable, which we'll talk about it in a second, but the USB ports on here are not USB 3, which is kind of weird. So that's what you get in the box. There is no battery. There's no handle. There's no accessories. It's just the camera and a few cables. There's not even a manual or anything in here. That's Kinefinity for you. So, let's talk about some of the accessories you can get for the Mavo. I find it kind of interesting. I looked on their website today, and they're like, whatever you order, that's the mount you get. I mean, they kind of insinuated, and this might be a translation issue, that you can't swap the mount. The mounts are swappable. I've got the active PL mount here, so you can see there's the 4 bolts here, and then they just kind of swap directly over. I've got the Tilta cage here. It comes in 2 pieces. It had this cage on there. I took it off for this, and then here's the side mount. So the side mount, the handle, I thought was going to mount directly to the camera, but it doesn't. You have a little side plate here that you install first. I think this cam link's trapped in bed, so if there's like glitches and whatnot, I'm super sorry. Stupid cam link. So I'm gonna put this guy on here. So you install this side plate here first, like so, and then the handle comes on here like this. No questions, so cool. Yeah, if you have any questions about the Vista, drop them in the chat. I will answer to the best of my ability. There we go. So this is the side handle. This feels really nice. Kind of put your thumb up here, good grip. So let's go ahead and pop a lens on here. I've got a few lenses. I got the Typox. I think these are my favorite lenses right now. Pop this guy off. And one of the things I really like that Kinefinity did was make the E-mount positive lock. It's just a much more secure connection. The lens doesn't wobble or anything. But with just the grip lens, you can see, oh, it's so light and tiny and cute. And so, like I said, it doesn't come with batteries in the box, so I bought the Tilta MPF batteries. I saw a bunch of good reviews about these, and so far, I've only used one in there, and I haven't had any like issues. Kind of, I haven't had any issues with voltage readings or anything at all. Okay, no chats. Hopefully this stream is not as buggy as it looks like on my screen. I'm gonna look at my phone, just make sure it's not buggy. Oh man, that is not good. What can you do? All right, we got the first boot on the Vista here. So let's check the firmware. This is 10.0.08. So I think all of the cameras are shipping with 10.0.08. I think that's a cam link that's really bugging out. If I use my MacBook. So you can kind of see here. 10.0.08. Man, this display is so freaking cool. But you can see with just the wooden handle and a Typox lens, just very nimble, very small, and hopefully once they introduce gyro data, this will become so much better. This is just so good versus the early builds. Like some people were trying to tell me these were super buggy and not worth checking out. Oh man, these are just so good. Okay. Let's see. Do we have any chats? Ugh, it's still buggy even on the MacBook. I don't know why. Our internet's good, so I don't know why. I don't know. Okay. What else do I want to talk about? Media. Luckily, I have some CFast already. Picked it up before the Rampocalypse. Works great in here. So let's go put the full cage on. Welcome to the stream. We're talking about Kinefinity Vista. Just another day in a camera nerd's life. So what's interesting is you're going to want to take this side plate off, and then this wooden handle mounts to the cage instead of this side plate here. So this side plate becomes redundant. It's only if you just want the wooden handle. Hopefully it's not too bad. Cool. So something I find interesting is the cage is split into two pieces. You've got the bottom piece here, which kind of wraps around the bottom, and the side. You've got 3/8 screws on the bottom here. And a 1/4-20 on the side. When I put my cages on, I like to do the screws loose so I can still slide the cage around. Make sure I get alignment correct. And then there's a side piece here. 2 1/4-20s on the top. Like so. And I'm going to take this off so we can do some firmware updates. Because this top piece here ends up blocking one of the USB ports. And so then this ends up being the full cage here. And then you can put the side handle on like this. And it adds about... And there's 2 little screws down here that connect it to the bottom of the cage. And this whole thing adds about, I don't know, 1.5 pounds. So it does make the camera quite hefty. And I don't know that I would want my camera, especially the Vista, that heavy. So I don't know that I'm going to live with a cage on it all the time. I think I'd much rather like just the side handle. We'll see. We'll see how we end up. We're dropping a ton of frames. I'm so sorry, guys. So sorry. This connection is just not good. I don't know why. I am a noob at live streaming, so super sorry. Anyway, let's go take a tour through the current firmware, and we'll kind of talk about the limitations on the shipping firmware and the firmware that I just got. It's not totally public yet. I'm gonna switch cameras here. If you guys have any questions, I'm gonna mute that. Mute that all. Jeez. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and drop them. I don't know why they're not dropping in the chat. I don't know. I don't know how to live stream. So let's take a look here. We're going to take a look at the firmware. Kind of get close here. All right, so it looks pretty familiar if you're familiar with a Mavo camera. But come in here, defaults to this, so we can go into 6K OpenGate, and then we can go up to 422HQ, but if we click on this, it's going to say, hey, we auto dropped you down to LT, which is the first annoyance. The second annoyance is if we start recording, it's going to bug out after about a couple minutes. So we'll just kind of keep going through the menus here. And you can kind of see there's like some tearing. I think the GPU that they're using is just not fast enough. And so there's some tearing on the screen here as you like scroll through the menus. It's fine. But these are almost the same menus that are in the Mavo. Not much has changed here. So, few things that are different from the Mavo. If you go into the audio settings here, this is a new menu paradigm for Kinefinity that I think is really quite interesting. This is a much improved audio interface, and they're slowly bringing this interface throughout the rest of the camera. One thing that I want to show you before we move on to the newest firmware is if we go into the E-mount settings, this is the... Oh, I can't even open the E-mount settings. Oh, it's probably because I don't have an E-mount lens on. Let's slap an E-mount lens on. Take this guy off. We're still recording. That bug is very inconsistent with the ProRes. Sometimes it like ends early, sometimes it doesn't. This is one of my favorite E-mount lenses. This is the FE 28 f2. It's really small, compact. It's really cool. So if you come in here, we're going to take a look at the E-mount settings, and this is the old, whoops. I think we can actually even come in here. No. If we hit, yeah. So we're in the E-mount menu. This is the old E-mount menu. And in the latest firmware, they've updated this to the newest menu design, kind of like this in the audio. So I'll show you that in a minute when we update this firmware. But we're still recording. What in the... I wonder if it's the... This doesn't make sense. That's weird. How are we still recording? I don't know. Anyway, there was a bug, and maybe there still is a bug, on this firmware where after about 3 minutes in ProRes, this will stop recording and go auto saving and then just stops recording. So I don't know why that's not happening here. No idea. So, do we have a... Hey, Philip. How's it going? You're welcome for the firmware. We're about to just toss this on here. This is really bug. I'm so sorry for those tuning into the stream. This stream looks really buggy, at least on my end. So let's go ahead and slap the new firmware on here. Is there anything else I want to show on this old firmware? Yeah, that's about it. So you can kind of see the menu is a little bit more bare on this firmware. And we didn't have support for USB audio input. So let's go ahead and toss the newest firmware on. Where did I put that USB drive? I had a USB drive here. It might be on my desk. I'll be right back. It was indeed on my desk. So, in order to update the firmware on the Mavos, we're going to put it into USB 1. So USB 1 is on the left side. USB 2 is on the right side. Pop it into USB 1. And we're going to come over here. Pop into System. We'll go into Update Firmware. It's going to check the USB. And then we'll hit upgrade. So the latest one is 10.1.20. At least that's the one that I was provided. I don't know if that's the final one that's going to be pushed out to people. There's still a few things missing from this firmware, like gyro. There's no gyro data still. But while we are updating firmware here, let's take a look at some Vista footage. Come here. We'll come into Resolve. Cool. So we'll come into Resolve here, and then So I have some Vista footage here. Yeah, let's grab these 2 clips. Toss them into DaVinci. Maybe. Is it not going to like these? Doesn't like these clips. I do have this clip here, and the firmware just finished updating. Okay, so this is just of my desk, really quick, nothing too impressive. I think the other clips, these might be the HEVC. Yeah, I haven't updated DaVinci, so it's probably not liking those HEVC clips. Come back here. So once the firmware is done updating, you'll get a little power off now. So we're gonna power off now. We'll take the USB out and we will boot back up. All right, we are booted. Cool, so this firmware is a little bit different. They added a new menu. Let's come back here. Add a new swipe up menu. So if you do this, you got all your kind of settings that you're at currently. And then you'll see, actually, we are in ProRes 422 instead of LT. That is one thing that is different. So we can come in here. You can see that we're in auto. We've got 422 HQ selected, but it drops us down to 422 instead of 422 LT. But if we come into 4K OpenGate, that star represents that it's a down-sampled version. It will record in 422 HQ. But I want to be in 6K. So you can kind of see here, this is a new menu. It tells you, there's a lot of like helpful hints in this menu too. And that was something in the old menu or old firmware that was annoying me. Every time you booted the camera, the hints would pop back up again, even if you dismissed them. And so every time you booted the camera, these hints would just like pop up, and it was just like really, really annoying. Now, once they are dismissed, they're dismissed permanently, but there is a menu in here that resets that. So if we come down to System and we go to System Settings, I think. Where is it? And so you can kind of see how much menus they've added here. It's quite interesting. And they've added these USB menus that show you what the USB does. So you can kind of see here, this does 5-volt out, as well as USB drive for LUT and firmware, and then a microphone. That's something that's really, really exciting to me. So I've got a DJI Mic 3 right here. Go ahead and power this guy on. Power the transmitter on. Cool. So I've got the USB here. And then we're going to plug a redo in. And it should. Yep. There we go. So if we come into the audio menu, if I can hit it, you can see that is a USB mic. That's really, really, really rad. And so if you can see, if I'm going to be quiet, just real quiet for a second. The levels are just much, much cleaner digitally than analog. I tested this over analog, and it's not a fault of Kinefinity or anybody else. It's just the fact of transmitting anything over analog. But this is really, really, really rad. And so what I'm going to try and do, I have a cable here that's a kind of USB extension. So I'll plug one end into here, and then I'll put this guy into the cold shoe, and then like that. So I just need to get a shorter cable like this, but that works. And so what's really cool is I can change the gain right from here in the menus of the Vista, and that will change the gain in the DJI mic as well, or in the receiver. And so this is a digital, fully digital from mic to camera, and that is so cool. The only other camera that does that, the only other camera, is a Sony with the little adapter, which I have on here. It's a little adapter, or DJI cameras that hook directly into the mics. So the Vista is the only other camera that does that. It's so cool. I'm super excited about that. Other features of this newer firmware. ProRes. There's no ProRes recording bug. So I can record ProRes for as long as I want. When you do update to this latest firmware, it changes the menu structure, which I can show you here. Switch to my screen, and we'll go to this SSD. Just ignore this folder. So this is the new menu structure for the Kinefinities. So all the clips will live in the root of the SSD, and then you have Kine clip data, which you'll have audio, gyro data when that's implemented, your LUTs, and metadata for the clips. And so instead of every clip living inside of a folder like this, where you have all of your metadata and everything inside here, now you just have your clips out here living. So that's really exciting. So like there's just a lot of changes in this latest firmware that I'm really, really pumped about. Oh, let me show you the new E-mount. Firmware, boop. E-mount. There's the new E-mount menu. And so I can change the aperture. And then if I come over, whoops. You can change the zoom if you have a power zoom. I can change the focus position from here. And then if you had optical steady shot or something, you can enable that. And then you can also change the steps. So if I change it to like a 0.10, now my aperture changes at a much smoother rate rather than larger jumps, which is really, really cool. Frame rates. Let's talk frame rates. They did do a frame rate increase on this. So if we just change to Super 35, and then we'll go to 4K 2:4:1. We can change our frame rate all the way up to 120 frames per second, which when they originally announced the camera, they said 100 frames per second. That's pretty rad. Pretty rad. 120 frames per second in Super 35. I can't believe they did it. So, yeah, that's really, really, really cool. Yeah, other than that, like this firmware that they've released is actually really, really stable so far, and I'm really excited to start really using this camera. My honeymoon is in a month. And we're going to Mexico City, and I'm really excited to travel around with this thing. Let's check the chat here. Yeah. Hey, Mark. Yes, I would say the Vista is, with this latest firmware, I would say the Vista is ready to use. There's not much other than gyro data that I'm thinking about that would kind of like really limit you. Anything else? Something that I see a lot online is the confusion of the Vista. A lot of people think that the Vista is the new flagship of Kinefinity, and the flagship is still the Mavo line. The Mavo line is the flagship camera. And so while these do share a lot of the same ethos, there's a lot of features that are still missing from the Vista, not by lack of firmware updates, but lack of hardware power. The size. I mean, the size of these cameras are quite different. This camera weighs almost 3 pounds. This weighs under a pound. And just by virtue of that, you're just going to have a lot of different capabilities. This can shoot up to ProRes 444. It can shoot RAW. It can do pre-record. I think up to 3 seconds of pre-record. This shoots into NVMe drives. This has XLRs. This has a full side menu here where I can do quick menu changes. This has a built-in monitor system here where I have got a Kinefinity 7-inch monitor. And so there's just a lot of features about the Mavo system that's unique to the Mavo. And I know that there are future Mavos coming. This isn't the only Mavo camera. This came out almost 4 years ago now. And so I'm getting thirsty. Yeah, so the Mavo came out almost 4 years ago and hasn't really seen an update since. And hasn't really seen an update since. And I think a lot of people are assuming that this Vista is the update to the Mavo, and it's not. This is just a tiny little camera that Kinefinity's been working on and making. So this is not a replacement for the Mavo. It's not going to have the same features that the Mavo has. It's not going to shoot RAW. It's not going to do pre-record. It's not going to have, obviously, XLR inputs. And I think that was in part by design. They didn't want to kind of step over the Mavo, but also to make this small and affordable, they had to sacrifice. But I really, really love that they decided to keep the same lens mount system. And so the same lens mount system that's on the Mavo works with the Vista. And it just, man, every time I pick this up, it's just so cute and tiny, and I love it. Whoa. Oh, hey guys. So just catching these messages here. Um, in terms of like update, I mean hardware updates. The Mavo line has seen quite a few firmware updates. It came out with firmware 7.2, I think. And then 7.3 came, and then obviously the big 8.0 firmware came out for the Mavos. Um, and that added raw recording and other features like Rec 2020 and stuff. And so that's the other thing this doesn't have. This doesn't do Rec 2020. There's no HLG format in here, which honestly I would like to see. And I think Kinefinity has the capability hardware-wise in the Vista to do Rec 2020 or an HLG type format. See, any other questions? Yeah, I don't really need RAW either. Even on my Mavo here, I shoot primarily ProRes LT, really. And so, like, do I really need this camera? No, but I like it. Some of the things I like about the Mavo is the V-mount back here, and it's just really convenient. It's very riggable. Obviously, I've got like a magic arm that I've NATO'd on here. The monitors are amazing from Kinefinity. So do I need this? No. Could I do all of my work with an A7S? Yeah, totally. But, oh, that's one thing that I wanted to take a look here. Game changer is kind of, I think, a word that's thrown around a little too loosely. I don't think it's a game changer. I think it's a really, really great camera, but I don't think it's going to make me not buy a Sony FX5. Let's say that. I really like cameras, and I think every camera has its strengths and weaknesses. But here's the comparison between an A7S III and the Vista. Very, very similar in size. The Vista is just ever so slightly thicker, and then the A7S is a bit wider. They're almost the same height with the EVF on the A7S. But one thing that's really nice is I can take this lens from the A7S. I'll just swap these guys over. And now I've got 24 to 70 GM, which I totally destroyed this lens at one time. Yeah, I have copied footage from the USB on here, and it's super slow. I mean, not super slow. It was manageable, but if you're going to want to copy footage from the internal SSD, and you can only copy internal footage from the SSD off the USB here, not the CF Express. The CF Express can only be offloaded externally through a reader. So let's go ahead and take this guy, toss you in here. But yes, I believe it's USB 2.0 speeds. Stupid question. If the live is lagging, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on. I'm new to live streams, so just bear with it. Stupid question. I have a FX30. You think it's a little better than the FX30, although the price of the Vista? All right, I'm gonna be totally honest here. I really hate the FX30. I think it's a fine camera. The autofocus is good on it, but I think the sensor is meh. It's a little too noisy for me. And that's something I noticed with the Vista is there's like very, very little noise on this thing. It's crazy. Um, let's change this back to full frame. Uh, 6K open gate. Oh yeah, I do have some LUTs on this USB drive, so let's go ahead and import some LUTs. So we come in here, and the same LUTs that work on the Mavo work on here. So if I come into LUT management, I can import LUTs, and import, boom. And I'll take that guy out, and you can just swipe between the LUTs on the screen. That's my favorite LUT right there. But yeah, it totally works with the Sony G Master lenses, which I love. Focus and iris totally work. The dial here just changes the iris by default. But yeah, very, very like lightweight, very manageable. I can't wait to carry this around and shooting. It's so cool. I just love holding this camera so much. Better in certain ways than the FX30 and worse in other ways. There's still no autofocus on the Vista. Yeah, so the reason I was excited I got the E mount version is because the E mount itself by alone is $600, and so that's why it's kind of weird that the Vista is the same price no matter the mount, because the Kine mount is $200, and so there is no price difference between the E mount and the Kine mount when you're ordering the Vista. But if I was to order a Mavo in either or, the price difference would actually change. So let me record some footage here so we can take a look at it in Resolve. So this is just ProRes, and I'm doing 6K open gate here.